Donald Trump gets a special prosecutor. It's the biggest, most beautiful specialist counsel anyone has ever seen. No one's ever seen a prosecutor quite so special. Grown men were weeping at the sight of this counsel. That joke never gets old. In a Friday after the midterms news dump, Attorney General Merrick Garland announced that he has appointed a special counsel to conduct 2 criminal investigations related to Donald Trump. This is extremely big news that has, so far, kind of flown under the radar. But in all likelihood, this means big things. In a superabundance of caution, the Attorney General has decided that the Department of Justice can't investigate the former president because he's running for president again and it would look political.
And isn't this sort of like double jeopardy? In the old days, they used to call it double jeopardy.
Enter the special counsel. No, not that guy.
You're not that guy, pal. Trust me. You're not that guy.
This guy. Jack Smith. Should Donald Trump celebrate? Does this mean that there will be a few more years of Trump escaping justice, or the prosecutions are just around the horizon? Well, by all accounts, Attorney General Merrick Garland is an institutionalist. Those that want to see a former president put in jail have criticized Garland for being too slow and too methodical, or just not doing anything. And although some Republicans predicted that Garland would use his office to exact some kind of revenge on Republicans, the opposite has largely been true. It appears that Garland decided not to prosecute Matt Gaetz or Rudy Giuliani. And now Garland has issued an order to appoint John L. Smith to serve as special counsel for the Department of Justice to conduct 2 ongoing investigations related to the former President Trump. Whether Trump unlawfully interfered with the 2020 presidential election and the certification of the Electoral College vote on January 6th, and whether Trump broke any laws when he removed classified documents and other presidential records from the White House to Mar-a-Lago. Now, Congress has delegated the authority of the Attorney General to appoint a special counsel. 28 U.S.C. 510 says the Attorney General may from time to time make such provisions as he considers appropriate, authorizing the performance by any other officer, employee, or agency of the Department of Justice of any function of the Attorney General. But the special counsel does have real independence. Under CFR section 600.7, the special counsel shall not be subject to the day-to-day supervision of any official of the department. However, the Attorney General may request that the special counsel provide an explanation for any investigative or prosecutorial step, and may, after review, conclude that the action was so inappropriate or unwarranted under established departmental practices that it should not be pursued. In concluding that review, the Attorney General will give great weight to the views of the special counsel. If the Attorney General concludes that a proposed action by a special counsel should not be pursued, the Attorney General shall notify Congress. And that section goes on to explain that the special counsel can only be removed for cause. Now, Garland's order is broader with respect to the first issue, the certification over the Electoral College vote. Quote, the special counsel is authorized to conduct the ongoing investigation into whether any person or entity violated the law in connection with efforts to interfere with the lawful transfer of power following the 2020 presidential election or the certification of the Electoral College vote held on or about January 6, 2021, as well as any matters that arose or might arise directly from this investigation or that are within the scope of 28 CFR section 600.4a. And continues, this authorization does not apply to prosecutions that are currently pending in the District of Columbia, as well as future investigations and prosecutions of individuals for offenses they committed while physically present on the Capitol grounds on January 6, 2021. That means that people who were on the Capitol grounds will continue to be prosecuted by the DOJ with the involvement of the special counsel. That means that the normies who are not in Trump's inner circle who were on the Capitol grounds will continue to be prosecuted by the DOJ without the involvement of the special counsel. The special counsel would be looking at the role that Trump and others who were not at the Capitol, but who were scheming for ways for him to stay in office. And as we've seen, this is a fairly complicated investigation that encompasses the plot to use fake electors in multiple states. It could also include investigation of people who planned the January 6th protests, which could lead higher up the chain. And the special counsel order does not impact ongoing state and local investigations, such as the Fulton County's probe into the fake elector plot. There's currently a grand jury considering evidence in that case right now, with possible defendants including Donald Trump and Senator Lindsey Graham. And the special counsel will also take over the investigation into the Mar-a-Lago documents. Quote, the special counsel is further authorized to conduct the ongoing investigation referenced and described in the United States response to motion for judicial oversight and additional relief, Donald J. Trump versus United States, as well as any matters that arose or may arise directly from this investigation or that are within the scope of 28 CFR 600.4a. So, the question is, why a special counsel? The special or independent counsel at the federal level has been around in one form or another for almost 150 years. The first independent counsel was appointed by President Ulysses S. Grant to investigate corruption at the high level of federal government officials in his administration. And just how independent these special prosecutors were depended on the laws governing their appointment. After the fallout from Watergate, Congress passed the Ethics in Government Act of 1978, which authorized the appointment of independent counsels. Under the act, the Attorney General would conduct an initial investigation investigation to determine whether an independent investigation was warranted. If it was, then a 3-judge panel of federal judges would appoint an independent counsel. That act was used to investigate Bill Clinton initially for his Whitewater real estate deals, which eventually turned into an investigation over his affair with Monica Lewinsky and obstruction of justice. In 1999, the statute expired and Congress did not reauthorize it, in part because the Democrats probably believed that the independent counsel was a little too independent. But obviously there was still a need for an independent investigative process. So in 1999, the DOJ promulgated regulations to establish procedures for the appointment of special counsels pursuant to the Attorney General's General Administrative Hiring Authority. Special counsels serve a similar role as independent counsels, but they have less independence. The Attorney General generally has the authority to appoint, supervise, and remove them. That said, we have an example where that kind of independence was directly challenged. Richard Nixon's Attorney General Elliot Richardson hired Archibald Cox as a special prosecutor relating to the Watergate affair. The AG had sole authority to fire Cox and only for extraordinary improprieties. But Nixon eventually tired of the investigation and ordered Richardson to fire Cox. Richardson famously refused and immediately resigned. Nixon then ordered Deputy Attorney General William Ruckelshaus to fire Cox. Ruckelshaus refused and also resigned. Nixon finally ordered Solicitor General Robert Bork, the number 3 of the DOJ, to fire Cox, and Bork complied. The special prosecutor was out of a job. So while the modern special counsel regulations contemplate independence, it's hard to refuse the head of the executive branch. The special counsel is funded by the Independent Counsel Appropriation, a permanent indefinite appropriation established in the Justice Department's 1988 Appropriations Act. And that means that the money comes from a permanent Treasury Department account and isn't subject to the annual appropriations process. And the Attorney General controls the special counsel budget, so Congress can't defund Jack Smith in this case. The special counsel reports directly to the AG, and if he determines that, say, Donald Trump should be charged, the special counsel has to notify Attorney General Garland. The regulation says, quote, "The special counsel shall notify the Attorney General of events in the course of his or her investigation in conformity with the departmental guidelines with respect to urgent reports." Congress also has the right to know what the special counsel is doing. The regulation says, quote, "The Attorney General will notify the chairman and ranking minority member of the judiciary committees of each House of Congress with an explanation for each action: 1, upon appointing a special counsel; 2, upon removing any special counsel; and 3, upon conclusion of the special counsel's investigation, including, to the extent consistent with applicable law, a description and explanation of instances, if any, in which the Attorney General concluded that a proposed action by a special counsel was so inappropriate or unwarranted under established departmental practices that it should not be pursued." So Congress will be notified about the outcome of the Trump-related investigations. But another question, why a special counsel now? Although some have questioned whether Garland made the right decision, the regulations seem to contemplate a situation like this. It states that the Attorney General will appoint a special counsel to conduct certain investigations or prosecutions, and those regulations are set forth in 28 CFR 600.1, which establishes a 3-part analysis for determining whether to appoint a special counsel. First, the Attorney General must determine that, quote, "a criminal investigation of a person or matter is warranted." Then the Attorney General must determine whether the investigation or prosecution of the person or matter by the U.S. Attorney's Office or a Justice Department litigating division would present either a conflict of interest for the department or an extraordinary circumstance. Third, the Attorney General must consider whether it would be in the public interest to appoint an outside special counsel to assume responsibility in the matter. So while Garland's order doesn't specify on what grounds he appointed Smith, in his speech announcing the appointment, he said, quote,
"Based on recent developments, including the former president's announcement that he is a candidate for president in the next election, and the sitting president's stated intention to be a candidate as well, I have concluded that it is in the public interest to appoint a special counsel."
And in the next breath, he points out that Donald Trump had announced his candidacy to become president again, and President Biden had indicated that he would run for re-election. So those might indicate either an extraordinary circumstance or a conflict of interest between the sitting president and a potential future president. Though, on the other hand, there's an argument that there's no actual conflict of interest that would preclude the DOJ from handling investigations normally, just like they did before President Trump announced he was running for president. He is, after all, just a U.S. citizen at this point. Garland has been overseeing the investigation into the events of January 6th for 2 years, and any perceived conflict might have already existed during that time, and yet there was no special counsel at that point. Though certainly appointing Smith as special counsel has not eliminated political criticism. Senator Ted Cruz said that the timing of the appointment was proof that the investigation was politically motivated. Cruz said, quote, "3 days ago, Trump announced, and now there is a special counsel. This is Trump derangement syndrome, but this time with a gun and a badge." Meanwhile, the House Judiciary Committee attacked Smith's impartiality. Quote, "Jack Smith and his buddies have been politically politicizing Washington for ages, and he's who AG Garland picked to be the special counsel to, quote, investigate President Trump. Come on. And on the other end of the spectrum, people who believe that Trump committed crimes and got away with them have scoffed at the appointment of a special counsel. They contend that this investigation will end the way that the Mueller investigation did, with a report rather than a prosecution, though this doesn't seem to be totally accurate. First of all, the Mueller investigation did lead to 34 people and 3 companies to be indicted. And of course, President Trump was not one of those people, but there are reasons for that. You can certainly disagree with them, but there were reasons. The Attorney General has sole authority to determine the scope of the special counsel's inquiry, and then President Trump's attorneys general wanted to limit the special counsel's work. And under the mandate and Mueller's interpretation of that mandate, Mueller was not allowed to accuse President Trump of a crime. Now, Mueller was also constrained by the Office of Legal Counsel memo that says a sitting president cannot be indicted while he's in office. That memo's conclusion is controversial, and the Supreme Court has never ruled on that. However, the Justice Department employees do follow the OLC memo. So the Mueller report outlined over 10 instances of obstruction of justice that implicated Trump. However, even if Mueller had the authority to charge Trump, he believed that he was bound by the OLC guidance on indicting sitting presidents. The Smith appointment as special counsel is markedly different because Garland gave him a broad mandate to investigate and prosecute Trump if the evidence is there. The posture of the case is also very different. There were multiple grand juries weighing evidence that Trump interfered with the certification of the 2020 election and that he broke the law by taking documents to Mar-a-Lago. In addition, there's no memorandum or court case anywhere that suggests it's illegal to prosecute an ex-president. And Smith will have to follow the DOJ's guidance on when it is appropriate to recommend criminal charges. Section 9-27.220 of the DOJ's manual outlines the grounds for commencing or declining prosecution. It states, quote, the attorney for the government should commence or recommend federal prosecution if she believes that the person's conduct constitutes a federal offense and that the admissible evidence will probably be sufficient to obtain and sustain a conviction unless 1, the prosecution would serve no substantial federal interest, 2, the person is subject to effective prosecution in another jurisdiction, or 3, there exists an adequate non-criminal alternative to prosecution. So now you might be wondering, who is Jack Smith, the new special counsel? Well, he is a 50-year-old graduate of Harvard Law School who started his career as a prosecutor in the Manhattan District Attorney's Office. Smith then moved to the U.S. Attorney's Office in Brooklyn, where he worked on public corruption cases. Smith then spent 2 years as the investigation coordinator in the Office of the Prosecutor at the International Criminal Court in The Hague. Smith supervised high-profile investigations of people wanted for war crimes and genocide. From 2010 to 2015, Smith was chief of the DOJ's Public Integrity Section, which investigates public corruption allegations. And while in that role, Smith investigated high-profile politicians on both sides of the aisle, which really seemed to piss off just about everyone. The Public Integrity Section was under fire for a case against former Senator Ted Stevens, which collapsed. During Smith's first few months on the job, he closed investigations into several Republican members of Congress. During his years as chief, the Public Integrity Section garnered a successful conviction against former Republican Governor Bob McDonnell, which was later unanimously overturned by the Supreme Court. And then the Obama administration chose not to continue prosecution after that reversal. Smith also pursued a case against Democratic vice presidential candidate and former Senator John Edwards, which resulted in a hung jury and a mistrial. Smith also helped lead the investigation into Democrat Bob Menendez, though he left the department a few months before the indictment, though Menendez was later acquitted. His team won a conviction against Representative Rick Renzi, a Republican from Arizona, who was sentenced to 3 years in prison, though Trump pardoned Renzi right before he left office in early 2021. For his own part, Smith said that the pace of the Trump investigations would not slow down under his watch. He said, quote, I intend to conduct the assigned investigations and any prosecutions that may result from them independently and in the best traditions of the Department of Justice. Mr. Smith said that in a statement, he vowed that the investigations would move forward expeditiously, quote, to whatever outcome the facts and law dictate. Though the New York Times reports that Smith, quote, will remain in the Netherlands for some time, according to the Justice Department, in order to recover from a recent bicycle accident. Though the 11th Circuit held oral arguments in the Mar-a-Lago case on the Tuesday before Thanksgiving, and although Smith remains overseas, the DOJ filed notice that he was on the case. Quote, Special Counsel Smith has reviewed the filings in this litigation and approves all of the arguments that have been presented in the briefs and will be discussed at the oral argument in this case. Special Counsel Smith's name will be affixed to future pleadings filed in all matters falling within his appointment. So while the appointment of Jack Smith as special counsel gives a little bit for everyone to hate, net, it's probably not good news for former President Trump. Certainly, it probably means delays in the short term, but Jack Smith has an advantage over Robert Mueller, who had to hire investigators and prosecutors and start from scratch. Smith gets to hit the ground running. He'll supervise DOJ prosecutors who are already on the case, and the DOJ has issued subpoenas, served a search warrant on Mar-a-Lago, and are in court battling Trump over the appointment of the special master. And the special counsel has hit the ground running. Smith now oversees the ongoing investigation into Trump's efforts to overturn the 2020 election, and Smith's office just issued subpoenas to elections officials in Allegheny County, Pennsylvania, Dane County, Wisconsin, Wayne County, Michigan, and Maricopa County, Arizona. The subpoenas seek documents and communications they had with 19 people, including Trump and some of his most well-known associates, like loony lawyer Lynn Wood, Sidney the Kraken Powell, Rudy Giuliani, Cleta Mitchell, and Bernie Carrick. Realistically, the appointment of Smith probably does nothing to mollify the political critics of it, who will say that this is a political prosecution, but still, appointing a special counsel is probably still better than Maine Justice under the aegis of A.G. Garland doing the prosecution. And while trying to figure out what's going to happen next is reading tea leaves, it probably doesn't mean that nothing is going to happen. In other words, Garland probably would not have appointed a special counsel if he had determined that no prosecution was warranted. And I think that Smith's experience shows that he prosecutes hard cases. Often the DOJ will only take a case if they think that they are sure to win, but it looks like Smith's record doesn't follow that adage. Public integrity cases are notoriously difficult, and the reason that the Supreme Court has overturned some of these convictions is that drawing the line between political action and bribery is very tough to do, let alone to get convictions in these politically sensitive cases. Though here, at least with respect to documents, that is a much simpler case than political bribery. But while Special Counsel Smith is resting his bicycle injury and getting up to speed, he'll want some legal audiobooks to listen to. He might enjoy John Grisham's new legal thriller, The Judge's List, on today's sponsor, Audible. It's all about a judge who is also a serial killer and uses the law against his investigators. Because a killer who knows how to manipulate the legal system is the scariest killer of all. Ooh. Now, I use Audible almost every day, and it's by far the best source of audio entertainment. I listen to audiobooks when I'm running, cleaning up, or when I'm supposed to be listening to friends and loved ones. Audible is the leading provider of spoken word entertainment all in one place. If you tried to listen to everything, it would take you 3 centuries. And as an Audible member, you'll get 1 credit every month that you can use on any title in their entire premium catalog. That includes basically every bestseller, new release, or memoir. Those titles are yours to keep forever in your Audible library. And you'll also get full access to their popular Plus catalog, which is filled with thousands and thousands of audiobooks, original entertainment, guided fitness and meditation, sleep tracks, and shows. All are included with your membership, no credits needed. And right now, Audible is running a special promo. New Audible members get a free 1-month trial. You can try it out and see why everyone loves Audible. All you have to do is go to audible.com/LegalEagle or click on the link that's on screen right now or in the description. So right now, for a limited time, get a free 1-month trial of Audible by clicking on the link below. And after that, click on this box over here for more Legal Eagle, or I'll see you in court.